perhaps the most devastating news of this week is the earthquake that struck Turkey. In the early hours of Monday, a 7.8 and a 7.5 magnitude earthquake struck Turkey and parts of Syria. About 4 to 5 major cities were affected, buildings coming down like a pack of cards, more than 7,000 houses affected by this earthquake. More than 28,000 dead already, and the death toll keeps rising.
The UN's emergency relief coordinator says he expects the death toll to continue to rise.
And I think it's really difficult to estimate, obviously very precisely, because you need to get under the rubble. But I'm sure it'll double or more. And that's terrifying.
The devastation in that part of the world right now is terrible, and they need a lot of the support and prayers they can get. Turkey was already struggling with inflation before this happened. A lot of tension politically as well. And Syria, on the other hand, is still living through decades of civil war. Rebels govern a large swath of the areas affected by this earthquake, and so people are already just managing to get by before this whole thing happened. Add to that the complication of the fact that many international communities consider the president of Syria a war criminal, and so they might be reluctant to help him given what he has done to his people before. So a lot of people in that area need a lot of support right now, and we need to be sending them a lot of prayers. You remember the China balloon that was shot down last week? Well, the US military shot down another high altitude object down over Alaska this week. Although this one is much smaller than the object that was shot down last week, they said the payload on this is the size of a small car versus the payload on the one that was shot down last week was the size of 3 school buses. But it's still something to be worried about. But the US military seems to be more aggressive in their stance since everyone has been talking about that China balloon that was shot down over the Atlantic Ocean last week. I'm afraid people might just begin to fly these objects. People can cook these things up and stitch things together in their backyards. People, very many smart people, they can cook stuff up in their backyards and just send it up in the sky. So people might begin to just fly these objects without any sinister motives necessarily, just to get the attention of the US government. All right, moving on to the State of the Union address. A few interesting moments during the State of the Union address. One was Senator Mitt Romney confronting George Santos and telling him that he's not supposed to be there. You remember George Santos is the guy who has lied about everything imaginable. Lied about his mom being alive or dead, lied about the college he went to, lied about the prep school he went to, lied about whether I went to private school or public school, all sorts of lies. And so the senator was adamant about the fact that, and it was not only at the State of the Union address, it was actually taking one of the most coveted seats in the chambers, the aisle through which the president and all the dignitaries walking through into the House chambers. Those aisle seats are actually quite coveted because people want to sit there, and so that they can shake the president, talk to the president, shake the senators, shake the Supreme Court justices that come through. But that was where George Santos was, and the senator was like, "You are not supposed to be here." Not add to the fact that you're not supposed to be here, you are even taking one of the most coveted seats in the chambers. So shame on him. Here's what he had to say.
He says that he embellished his record. Look, embellishing is saying you got an A when you get an A minus. Lying is saying you graduated from a college you didn't even attend. And he shouldn't be in Congress. And they're going to go through the process and hopefully get him out. But he shouldn't be there. And if he had any shame at all, he wouldn't be there.
Why did you make a point to say that, though? It was kind of out of your way to.
Well, he was standing right there in the aisle, shaking hands with everybody.
Did he respond to you?
He may have. I didn't hear.
Another interesting moment during the State of the Union address was when Marjorie Taylor Greene called the president a liar. Well, the president suggested that Republicans want Social Security to sunset, or they want to cut Social Security. This was probably one of the most tense periods during the address. The president might have gone a little far on this because many Republican leaders have actually said that they do not want Social Security to be cut. President Donald Trump said that. McCarthy has said that. Even the current Speaker of the House has said that they don't want the Social Security to be cut. But the president was just trying to basically taking a cheap shot at the Republicans when he suggested that they were asking that Social Security is cut. There is obviously a need for some kind of reform of Social Security, but not to cut the program entirely. The Associated Press ran a poll about asking respondents if they wanted Joe Biden to run again. Last year, 52% of Democrats think Joe Biden should run again. This year, when they ran the same poll 1 week to the State of the Union address, only 37% of Democrats think he should run again. So that could potentially open the room for other contenders to get into the ring with the president. A lot of people are looking at this State of the Union speech, hoping that Joe Biden would prove that he's too old to run the union and that he's too old for the job, that he's just a old man running the union. But honestly, the president did quite well in terms of not stumbling on his words, and he can be proud of himself. All right, in sports, Manchester City charged by the Premier League. Over 100 charges were levied against Manchester City, the main one being financial irregularities about how they paid Roberto Mancini, one of their coaches in the early days of the club, at least in the early days when they just acquired the club, and how they also remunerated a few players for a time period. There was also charges about not complying to UEFA's financial fair play regulations. The other part of the charges has to do with honesty and cooperation during the period of the investigation. Clubs are supposed to act in the utmost good faith of other clubs in the league when they're submitting their papers and doing transfers and things like that. And Manchester City, the Premier League is claiming that Manchester City did not do that in many cases, and also saying that they did not cooperate with investigators during the period of the investigation, which started about 4 years ago apparently. Manchester City has released a statement. It says Manchester City Football Club is surprised by the issuing of these alleged breaches of the Premier League rules, particularly given the extensive engagement and vast amount of detailed materials that the EPL has been provided with. The club welcomes the review of this matter by an independent commission to impartially consider the comprehensive body of irrefutable evidence that exists in support of its position. As such, we look forward to this matter being put to rest once and for all. You remember that Manchester City was also caught in something like this a few years ago when they were banned from UEFA Champions League for 2 years, and then they were able to overturn that at the Court of Arbitration for Sports. And so you can expect that this will go through the same kind of procedure, and it's going to be long drawn out, and it's going to take some years to figure out. But it's interesting that Manchester City seems poised and ready to fight this again. You remember that there was a proposal for a Super League a few years ago, and that was shut down. Protests from fans and club owners in some cases shut that idea down. Well, there's been another idea put forward, another proposal for a different kind of structured Super League. This one is going to have between 60 and 80 clubs involved across Europe, and there will be no permanent membership within the league and things like that. I've not really delved into the details of it, but it's interesting that that idea of a Super League hasn't really died. It has just gone back, and it's going to keep coming up over and over again. Currency redesign in Nigeria. The currency redesign program in Nigeria continues to create enormous hardship for the citizens of the country. People are lining up all day at the bank to get new currency notes, but the banks have limited the amount that each person can get. Some banks have limited it to 5,000 naira, some banks 20,000 naira, but there isn't much you can do with 5,000 naira or 20,000 naira in the current state of the economy in Nigeria. So that has been quite frustrating. The ATMs are also out of money, so people don't have access to the money, their own legitimately earned money. And so that's really frustrating. This has led to a lot of riots, a lot of protests, and people are even beginning to attack innocent bank workers. Bank managers have been caught hoarding these new Naira notes. POS vendors have been charging exorbitant rates for their services.
Bring them down. You have so many. These are new notes at your back.
Yes. I want to bring them down so that
load all your machines. I do not want to hear it because we'll keep continuously be checking.
Yes.
Make sure that your machines are working. So make sure, bring them out and load. That's all. That's all.
And so people have just been frustrated. Even people have died. People have slumped and died in banking halls because they were frustrated about not having access to their money. Add to all this the fact that petroleum has become scarce in an oil-producing country. We hear that the oil that we need to actually service the whole nation is sitting on the high seas, but some people are just determined not to allow the oil to come in and service the country. Primarily because elections are coming. So many people are convinced that this hardship that is being meted out on the people is to make it easier for manipulation to happen during the elections. When people are suffering hardship, many people may not be interested in voting, and so if you reduce voter turnout, then it's easier for you to manipulate the results potentially. So that might be the thinking in some quarters. At this rate, we are all just tired. We want the elections to come and go so that we can know how we want to plan for the next 4 to 8 years. Are we going to have the same thing? Should we be expecting status quo, or can we, by God's grace, be expecting a new Nigeria in the next 4 years? All right, that's all I got for you. Subscribe to the channel, like the video, share the video, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.